There we go. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. My name is John. This is my channel, your Renaissance man. It is Tuesday, and we're just at the end of March. And today we're going to talk with Thomas Gallagher of Gallagher Criminal Defense. His website is in the description if you'd like to get in contact with him directly. And we're going to talk a little bit about gun law and help you better understand your rights and what you should do in a situation when interacting with law enforcement, and maybe try to figure out if or when you need an attorney involved. So we're gonna add Tom in here. This is Tom, and I'll put your name at the bottom of the screen. So if people need to Google you or whatever and try to find more information beside your website, you know how to spell your name. So this is Tom. We've known each other for a number of years. Got to know each other through motorcycling initially, and just stayed in contact through Facebook mostly. But I'm starting to do a series of just talking with my friends in certain professions and understanding their knowledge of their expertise and sharing that knowledge with you folks here on YouTube. So, Tom, feel free to introduce yourself a little bit and we'll dive in.
Well, I'm Tom Gallagher. I'm a criminal defense attorney in Minneapolis, have been since 1988, handling all different kinds of criminal defense cases. I've done a lot of work politically as well on marijuana legalization, on preventing gun prohibition laws, and some other things as well.
Sure. And you said you're roughly been practicing law about 38 years, I think it was.
Yes.
Okay. Um, did you ever dream that this was your goal in life? Was that always what you wanted to be, as an attorney, or did you develop that interest over time in college, or?
I guess I didn't really, yeah, when I was young, I didn't think I would be an attorney.
Sure.
Um, but actually, what happened was I was offered a job working for an attorney, and I was essentially they called me a paralegal, but I was also an investigator and a paralegal. So I would do like lawyer's work without being a lawyer, and I would also do investigation work, interviewing witnesses and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just found I was really good at it. And I remember one time during summer break, I eventually, because I was good at it, I got excited about it. I thought, you know what, I think I will apply to law school. So I did after that. And during summer break, they asked me to come back and consult with them on a white collar crime case they had in federal court. And I suggested to them the legal theory that I thought would work to get the
Mm-hmm.
guy off.
Yep.
And he was one of, I think, 8 co-defendants, and the jury convicted them all, but our firm, the one that I was associated with, made a motion for acquittal notwithstanding the jury verdict, and the judge granted it.
Nice.
And yeah, the client, thanked me, said, Tom, your theory worked. And
Uh-huh.
I thought, wow, I have a knack for this. This is great.
So you do get an attaboys out of that profession.
Well, from other, yeah, yeah. Sometimes you're from your client or from other
Right.
defense attorneys. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's nice. It's always nice to get recognition for your efforts versus just taken for granted or whatever. It's that little, icing on the cake type deal. Um,
Yeah.
so what we've been talking about is a little bit is about Minnesota gun law. And one of the ones we talked about in our little pre-interview was negligent discharge. And it sounded like that was one of the more popular ones that you're involved with, defending people in those
Um,
instances.
I don't think they're super common, but I get a fair number of them. And, you know, I just feel the analogy I sometimes make to try to explain, what it feels like to be doing what I do. Um, it, it reminds me of being an emergency room physician in a smaller town, perhaps. And on Friday, Saturday nights, teenage kids are coming in because there's a party spot near a cliff on the edge of town, and they're drinking and they're falling off the cliff and they're coming into the ER, right? And I have to try to save them. And I keep thinking, well, why doesn't somebody like put up a fence there so those drunk kids don't keep falling off the cliff,
Sure.
right? So then I just go out there on Sunday and I build a fence with my buddy,
Right.
because I want to do something. I don't just want to like, because nobody else really knows that's happening, or people aren't very aware of it. But I'm really aware of it because I'm the guy who's putting it together. I'm the guy who's hearing, yeah, we were drinking, and then it was dark, and we felt we didn't realize, we just took one step over the line, and boom, you know.
Right.
So you just want to. These things are so preventable. You want to find a way to tell people, don't do that.
Right.
Don't do
So
that. So
briefly describe what a negligent discharge is.
So a negligent discharge of a firearm, I mean, that's a term from the firearm community, from the military community. Um, Whenever a firearm is discharged when you didn't intend it to be, an unintentional discharge, that could be a negligent discharge if you failed to be careful enough.
Right.
But in the context of criminal law, if you have a reckless discharge, which is like gross negligence, it's like super big negligence, not just normal negligence, but a reckless discharge of a firearm in a municipality is a crime in Minnesota. It's a felony. So I've represented people on that felony charge many times. And I would say at least 90%, maybe 95%, maybe more than that, there was alcohol involved.
Mm-hmm. And you said, I think you
So
told me also most of them were in multifamily dwellings.
that's right. Yep. And so I think on the prevention angle, my takeaway from the alcohol observation is avoid handling a firearm. Handling means touching or lifting or carrying or manipulating or even touching a firearm. If you're drinking, I say just leave your firearm lay right where it is. Don't even touch it until you're sober again.
Right.
Because people are at very high risk. At least that's what I see. I don't see sober people doing this. I only see people who've been drinking. So don't drink, and then it won't happen. Is my conclusion. But in terms of the people who get charged with that crime, another highly correlated factor to being charged with that crime is it happens in a multi-unit housing place, like a townhome, an apartment building, or something like that, where you have shared walls with a neighbor.
Right. Right. Um, and now what is what is your most popular crime that you're defending people for currently? What do you see the most common right now that's, that enters your workplace? What do you get called most
Well, I
called
mean,
about?
it does vary a lot. I don't know that there's
Is it
one
seasonal
common one.
or is it just trends or no really?
Sometimes, I mean, I think sometimes some of them are trendy. Um, for example, the serial number, firearm without a serial number, um,
We get to say that term.
prosecution.
We have to say that term at least once so people know what we're talking about. As much as you hate it, we're referring to ghost guns. Now we're not going to say that again. So proceed.
Right. Well, I don't normally love what the ATF does or says,
Does anybody?
but I mean, I kind of like to see them go out of business because there are no more gun control laws. But they did come up with a term that I do like called privately manufactured firearm. And because it is a little bit long, they abbreviate it frequently to PMF in
Okay.
ATF
Okay.
websites and things. So privately made firearms, or PMFs, are what the gun control community loves to call a ghost gun. It's not really a ghost gun. It's just a firearm that doesn't have a serial number. And by the way, a gun is not a firearm necessarily.
Right.
So I've got an article on my website about criminal law and BB guns, where I have a graphic, like a Venn diagram
Sure.
showing a big circle within a small circle, or a small circle within a big circle. The small circle is firearms, the big circle is guns. So
Sure.
all firearms are guns, but not all guns are firearms.
Right.
Like a BB gun is not a firearm, for
Right.
example.
Right.
But a privately made firearm, which is not a gun, therefore not a ghost gun. Also, what is a ghost, right? But
Yeah,
so
exactly.
it's a crazy, colorful term to grab attention, but doesn't really tell you much. But a privately made firearm tells you a lot. It tells you that this is a firearm, not a gun, that was manufactured privately.
Right.
So privately manufactured is important because under federal gun laws, if you commercially manufacture a firearm, you're legally required to have a serial number on the gun.
Right.
Or if you uh,
Bring anything
commercially
into the country.
manufacture
Right.
or import, yeah,
Right.
there has to be a serial number. But if you, under federal law right now, if you privately manufacture a gun, you do not need a serial number on your firearm. And in
Right.
Minnesota right now, you do not need a serial number on your firearm if you privately manufacture it yourself.
Right. And I just want to clarify for our viewers that a manufactured firearm that you could make yourself doesn't mean you are casting your own barrel. I mean, you're not a blacksmith forging a weapon. This includes kits, partially assembled firearms or kits or receivers that are disassembled enough to be not considered a firearm. So this is something that's within the wheelhouse of your average person that has some ability with tools that can tinker. It's not something out of the realm of your average person, I would say. Person of a slightly above average intelligence could probably figure it out. Some of the kits are very simple, drill a few holes. It doesn't require a
Yeah, and
lot.
there is a newer ATF rule that has expanded serialization requirements on gun part kits,
Okay.
but I haven't really gotten into that in depth myself because that's not an issue that a
Right.
criminal lawyer
Right.
comes across as much
Right.
as the other one, where I've defended many people who've
Right.
been falsely prosecuted under the Minnesota's law that was being misinterpreted for like 4 or 5 years by prosecutors all over Minnesota, improperly prosecuting people for something that was perfectly legal under Minnesota
Right.
law. But
Right.
now the Minnesota Supreme Court in State versus Vega last year corrected them and said, no, you can't prosecute people for that because that's not what the statute says. And as a result, this year, the Minnesota legislature right now has a bill or number of bills that would um, criminalize guns without serial numbers. Not only privately manufactured firearms without serial numbers, but um, firearms manufactured before 1968, because before 1968, even commercial firearms and imported firearms were not required to have serial numbers in the
Right.
United States, and
Right.
so they were grandfathered in basically.
Right.
But Minnesota legislature wants to do away with that. So if you've got an old gun, you become a felon, and they want to put you in prison.
Right. And
If
so
the law if their bill passes, which hopefully it
right.
won't. It hasn't passed so far because there's a stalemate at the legislature right now, and
Right.
the Second Amendment community has been fighting hard and being vocal about opposition with
Yes.
with especially with the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus.
I'm going to flash their logo up real quick just as a reminder cuz I try to remind people that we do have a group, Minnesota Gun Caucus Owners, that is very active protecting our Second Amendment rights in Minnesota. And there are some other groups on social media that use the name Minnesota and gun stuff in their title, but to my knowledge, Minnesota Gun Caucus Owners is the only one who's actually doing legal stuff like lawsuits and actively dealing with legislation. So if you're going to support anybody, support Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus. I'm not affiliated with any way. This is not a sponsorship, but these are the people you want to sponsor. If you feel like you're getting to the point you want to donate some money, these are the people who benefit the most. You can find them on social media. They got a website, all that happy fun stuff. So I just always support the people that are protecting your rights if best you can.
There is another group that's using the name Minnesota Gun Rights,
Right.
and these guys are not from Minnesota. They have
Yes. Is that the
kind
is
of
that the two brothers or whatever?
yeah.
And they have
I don't
that
want to
kind
say
of.
their names, but
I don't either. I don't want to give
yes,
them any credit. Any.
it is easy to find. But
Yeah.
they do a lot of fundraising,
Yeah.
and they
Scre-
occasionally show up at the Capitol in Minnesota, but I don't believe they've done that. I don't think they've shown up this
they're
year, or
not,
maybe
yeah, they're
once
not
to
even
do a
based in this
video or
state. I
something.
think they're based in Iowa, and
Yeah,
they have
and they have
several
similar.
organizations with the different, basically it's the same last name with a different state in front of it. I think they have like a dozen of them or something like that.
Right, exactly. So they do a lot
Yeah.
of fundraising, but they don't appear to be doing any
No, they scream on social
advocacy.
media and they say, "Look what we're doing. Look what's being done." And it's usually Minnesota Gun Caucus owners that's actually doing the work. And
Minnesota
so,
Gun Owners Caucus.
gun owners,
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I wish they would shorten that up a little bit. But, anyways, yes.
that's pretty
So,
short.
no, I mean, it's kind of a mouthful. But, anyways,
Well, it could be a bigger. It used to be the Minnesota Civil Rights Gun Owner Civil Rights Organization or something. We've had
yeah,
longer names,
right.
but the only group right now that's doing uh, work in this area is the Minnesota Gun Owners
There's
Caucus,
caucus. Yep. I got them flashed on the screen right now.
and they
So,
have a lot of great info at their on their website.
yes. And they do nice short videos with updates as they're dealing with legislation and committees. What's the head guy's name again? Um,
Brian Strauser and
and who's the other one? Um,
uh,
who's the one that does the? Is that the one that does
Rob
the
Dorr.
door? That's what I'm thinking of. That's the one. I think he does the videos normally.
Yeah, Rob Dorr, and they have a new lobbyist.
Oh, the female lobbyist, right? Was that?
Yeah,
I don't remember her name, but anyways, you can find these guys. The Remember that they're the black and the gold because the other group is gray, red, and blue or something like that. So when you sometimes the names kind of look the same, and if you're not familiar with them, so Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus. Okay, we'll get.
yeah, and they're on Facebook and
Yep.
X as well.
Hmm.
But yeah,
Another one we talked about yesterday was negligent storage. Um, give a brief description of what exactly that means and the kind of charges you've, or the
so
kind of
there's
situations.
another. There is another set of proposals. So the negligent storage topic is one of the types of categories of issues or laws that the gun control community or advocates are keep pushing and have been pushing for years. And we do currently have a criminal law relating to negligent storage of a firearm where a child is likely to gain access. So the way I kind of simplify that is negligent storage plus child likely. Um,
Is that strictly age category, or was there other stuff for like vulnerable
yes,
adults or something like that? Like
no, I don't. Well, right now it's just it's
solely
simple, and
age
I think
based?
yeah, and
Okay,
I guess that could invite a discussion of should laws be simple or complicated.
right,
I'm on the side of simple, but
right,
if this reminds you of that and that reminds you of another thing, where does it end, right? So you can always keep going tangentially, expanding your categories. But I prefer simple, or actually, I prefer fewer laws to more
right.
laws. But that's a whole other thing. But to sticking to the topic of negligent storage of a firearm crimes in Minnesota, it's only when right now the current law is only when a child could gain access, but the proposal is basically to eliminate the child, just to make it negligent storage, whatever that means. So
So
it's
then that
they're
would be
trying to broaden.
all encompassing then, no matter.
Yeah, so you
So then
don't need a child.
how do you decide that somebody shouldn't have access to it then? What is the basis? How would you? That's some
Yeah, well, I mean, I think what it seems like, if you look at a, a lot of the proposals of um, moms wanting action and things like that,
right,
groups like that, other gun control groups, Bloomberg groups, they seem to be pushing the idea. First of all, they want to outlaw and eliminate all guns because they think if guns didn't exist, the world
right,
would be a better place, according to
right,
them, right? And so, but short of that, they want to do everything they can, apparently, to incrementally infringe upon our right to
right.
keep and bear arms until we end up at this utopian nirvana of no weapons in
Right.
the world, except I guess their weapons and the government's weapons. But
Right.
so that they have weapons and we don't, I guess. But they want to disarm us. They want civilian disarmament. So one of their goals along the path of that is to say, well, if you're a gun owner, then you have to keep your gun locked up in a safe or other locked condition so that no person can use it without unlocking it, and unloaded. So locked and unloaded,
Right.
basically. So, of course, if you needed to actually use a firearm for self defense or home defense, it wouldn't do you any good because
Right.
you would have it unavailable. It would be inaccessible
Right.
to you without, um,
The amount of time involved. Right.
yes, unless you have the luxury of time, which obviously in self defense, that's the very thing you don't have the luxury of.
Right. Then it wouldn't be called self-defense if it enough time
You're right.
expired because you got
If
time
you
to
had
leave if you
time,
got time to do
you could just
this. Right.
leave or
Yeah.
some,
Yeah.
yeah,
It
do
just
something. But
gets into another reason why they can say, no, that wasn't self-defense. Look
so
how
yeah,
much.
the negligent storage proposal that they have now are essentially saying, you know, you have to keep your guns locked up and or unloaded at all times. And if you don't, that's negligent storage. Another related idea is home inspections. That, you know, these are kind of, it's kind of like a menu, like, well, should we add this one or not, you know? And
Very a
then,
la
well, if you
carte.
want to
Yeah.
argue about the, we want to, you know, if we want to give you something crazy aggressive so that you can glom onto that, and then we can make a, oh, okay, well, we'll give in on the home searches, the licensing and inspection rule
Right.
for gun owners. If you acquiesce to the, if you just agree to the new law that it has to be locked and unloaded in your home. And then a year or two later, they come back and say, oh, you know what? We want to expand it now. Just like with the red flag law that they passed 2 years ago. Now they're back this year wanting to expand it even more to make
Right.
it, instead of 1 year, it was a
Right.
1 year red flag. They call it red flag. It's a restraining order saying you can't have your guns
Right.
because we think you're somebody we can't trust with guns.
Right.
So instead of 1 year, they want to make it 5 years now.
Have you had any clients that's been put through the red flag deal and had to defend them? Have you had any clients?
I I'm not I don't enjoy doing restraining order cases. Technically, they're not criminal,
Sure.
but they're sort of criminal adjacent because they're the setup. So
Right.
there's different types of restraining orders. One of the older ones that's common is a domestic abuse restraining order, which is commonly called an order for protection.
Right.
And that's something that someone can get in family law. If somebody is physically abusing them that they're in a relationship with, they can go to family court, file a petition, and it's person A against person B, their name in the caption of the lawsuit, and it's a pretty quick procedure because it's sort of an emergency procedure. And then they serve the order on the party who's going to be restrained on behalf of the protected person. And then if the other party contacts the protected person after being ordered by a judge not to contact them, then that is a crime. That's a crime called violation of an order for protection. So a few years after that became law, they expanded that and came up with another law that pretty much the same, except it's called a harassment restraining order. And for a harassment restraining order, you don't need a domestic relationship. It could be your neighbor who pisses you off because he doesn't mow his lawn or whatever, his dog barks, you know.
Right.
Um, so you get a harassment restraining order against somebody that you don't get along with, and maybe there's always the possibility of mutual restraining orders, and that's pretty common. So mutual orders for protection or mutual harassment restraining orders. But in any of these, if there is already a restraining order, like one of those two, for example, and then the person is alleged to have violated one of them, that is a crime, the violation of the civil order
Sure. Gotcha.
is a criminal case now. So that's where I come in as a criminal lawyer.
Right.
So the ERPO law, was it standard emergency response? I forget, but it's the red flag. Uh, it's where they strip you of your guns because they think we can't trust you with your guns, and
Mm-hmm.
so they got that only a couple of years ago. And I oppose those laws. I think most people in the Second Amendment community oppose those laws. They don't solve the problem. The problem, if somebody is mentally ill and cannot be trusted with weapons, they should be offered voluntary mental health treatment, or if they don't want and they do need it, they could be civilly committed under Minnesota civil commitment law. And I have represented people in that process. I used to years
Okay.
ago, so I know all about it. And but so treating people for mental illness is very helpful to people. If somebody is truly mentally ill and they do have a weapon, taking away their firearm may not really do any good. It probably won't do any good because they can just pick up a kitchen knife, which can be a weapon, or any other type of weapon. Um, there
Right.
was a guy several years ago who attacked a medical clinic in Buffalo, Minnesota, and he was upset about. I think he
Oh
was.
yeah, 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 yeah. That was
I think
oh
they tapered him off opiates, or they wouldn't renew his
yes,
opiate prescription,
yes.
and he had some chemical mental health issues, perhaps, and
Uh-huh.
so he went out there with a firearm and with bombs. And it was
Yes.
interesting because the media, they kept talking about his firearms, but they didn't really talk about his bombs for some reason. But
Uh-huh.
so if you take away the person's firearms, they still have their bombs. And I think between a firearm and a bomb, arguably a bomb can kill more people
You
more
don't have to
quickly than
aim
a
a bomb.
firearm.
Just has to be in close
Yeah.
proximity. It's right.
And bombs another thing about bombs versus firearms. You think of the Boston Marathon bombing with the pressure cooker, right?
Right.
So
Yep.
we can outlaw pressure cookers because you never know, somebody might make a bomb out of a pressure cooker. It's pretty easy to do.
Right. Right. And even with the
But
unserialized firearms now, they're trying to make it illegal to 3D print, and it's like, yeah, it just they daisy chain stuff together.
yeah, so the idea of the red flag law, I think it's a flawed. It's sort of like it's like pretty much every gun control idea where they're misattributing the cause of the problem. The cause of the problem of murder is not a nylon stocking that a murderer uses to strangle someone.
Right.
We can outlaw nylon stockings. That's not going to reduce the murder rate. We can outlaw guns. That's not going to reduce the murder rate.
Right.
What is going to reduce the murder rate is things that would address the causes of murder. The tool that a murderer uses does not cause a murder.
Right. Right. Like, yeah, it's been stated many times. A firearm is a tool, and you can use a lot
Yeah,
of different tools to commit violent crimes or whatever you want to call them.
right.
And like we had talked about yesterday a little bit, I think you had I don't remember your exact words, but what I got from it was legislation, it's a quick way to address a problem without really doing anything, and it gets approval from the people that are asking them to do it. We're just going to create
Right.
another law. And now we've pinpointed a law directly about that group's concern. So we did our job,
So I
whether
think,
whether it's effective or not, that's the other part.
if you are a political figure, an elected official, and you're elected, you need there's a performative aspect to your work,
Right.
which maybe we love it, maybe we hate it, but it is what it is. It's inherent. There's really no way around it. But it creates a temptation for people to um, offer a simple solution that that some people might find appealing, even though you should know that it actually will not do anything to solve the problem. And in the case of gun control will not do anything to solve the problem of violent crime. However, it won't cost the government any money or very little money. So the real solutions to violent crime, such as improving mental and chemical health services for people that need them,
Right.
that's really expensive. That's super expensive. But that would help reduce crime.
Right.
And and hardening targets. So if you're worried about attacks on school, like the Annunciation
Right. I
church shooting.
right.
By the way, when I was a little kid, I went to Annunciation
Oh,
for
really?
catechism. Yeah, so I grew
Sure.
up Catholic. Yeah,
Is
my
that
name
kind of
kind of
roughly your neighborhood where you grew up? Or
at that time it
at
was.
that
Yeah,
okay.
when I was when I was an elementary school kid, I
Sure.
lived in that neighborhood. Yes. Um, and that was our church. And so I went there on Saturday. If you're Catholic, you have to go to school on Saturday when you're a kid. So
Right.
you've got 6 days of school per week.
Right.
So Saturday is just another school day, except instead of academic topics, it's religious
Right.
education.
Right.
So that's where I went to school on Saturday as a kid, was Annunciation, where this murderer murdered a bunch of children, shooting a firearm through the windows of this
Right.
church because apparently he couldn't get in, which
Yeah.
was wonderful. I mean, maybe he would have killed more people had he gotten in. But um, if we were to harden the targets, like uh, places that would attract a publicity murderer like that, a depraved person who wants to glorify their ego through a horrific act of violence,
Right.
um, like that guy, um, we could harden the targets of airports, of courthouses, of sporting event facilities, of schools. Maybe we could start doing that someday if we wanted to.
Yeah. I mean,
We could make the windows bulletproof quite easily if we wanted to spend the money. Of
right.
course, we don't. So far, we haven't wanted to spend the money,
Right. That's
but,
I
but
mean,
gun control is free.
you could do if you could do something as simple as not having windows at street level. You could only have
Right,
windows 10
but
feet
they're all.
high. So at least, you know what I mean? There's so many little things you could nuances you could
You
do to make things more difficult.
there's bulletproof glass and bulletproof glass film. It's a Google search away. You can read all about it. It's not that expensive, really. It's a
Sure.
little bit of money, but you could, yeah, it's more money to kind of redesign, reconfigure an old building and
Right,
change the
right.
windows. That
Right.
would be kind of expensive, but it's pretty cheap to put a bulletproof film on existing glass
Right.
or put new glass. So that's just one example, but there's thousands of things you can do to improve the security of a school
Right.
that we're not done at Annunciation.
Well, and
So
that's what's infuriating to me as just your Joe Blow citizen or whatever is we're seeing the trends around the country that our schools are soft targets and they're preyed on repeatedly across the country. And Columbine, I think, is what really kicked it off that got national attention. And it seems like that was kind of a starting point. I'm sure there was stuff before that, but that was the one that really got the spotlight, probably for the body count, possibly. And, plus it was that had bombs involved also, not just firearms. And, but I think, what was that, 1989 or something like that? Or I forgot what year it was, but it's been over 20 years, whatever. And we're seeing this repeatedly, and it's becoming more common. And yet, s- disappointing, this is where the media gets really disappointing. We're not calling out for justice for these are soft targets. Why do we still allow these to be soft targets? It's obvious that these are soft targets. People are using this as a way to get whatever attention that they're trying to get for doing these acts, and they know that's a place they can get away with it. And yet it's not being addressed directly as this is a problem in America. The media can always pinpoint this is the problem in America right now. but they won't give this any traction, at least not at that angle. So, hello. Are you there, Tom? Oh boy. Let's see. Tom, if you can hear me. Hello, hello. I think we got a technical problem. Let's see. See if he calls back. Yeah, he dropped the call right now. Let's see if he calls back. We got a little technical difficulty there, I think. Let's see, get him to call back. But anyways, we're talking to Thomas Gallagher of Gallagher Criminal Defense in the state of Minnesota. We're talking about Minnesota gun laws, and he's a criminal defense attorney. He says sounds like currently that's the kind of cases he deals with the most is gun law. And we're talking about, what did we talk about earlier? Negligent discharge and negligent storage. And we were just talking about the how currently in America it seems like our schools, meaning our K through 12, where our children go to school, are schools that are paid for by the government, to operate to educate our children, or seem to be soft targets right now. And how it's kind of the silent unknown here. Let's see. And can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, sorry about that.
No worries. So we were talking about soft targets and how it's the elephant in the room. We all know that our schools have become soft targets in this country, and it's been for a couple decades now, and it doesn't get the public outcry that I feel it deserves. Because if you're aware of that for, well over a decade, or I mean, even 5 years, you should be like, okay, let's start to do something about that. And, we've seen lots of veterans groups even offering to, you know, volunteer to be guards at schools and such. And that seems to be frowned upon by certain groups, especially certain political parties and whatever, but not to go down that road. But there's some really obvious solutions. And like you said, reinforcing windows with bulletproof stuff that helps make it more bulletproof. And like I said, we've had veterans groups that have wanted to volunteer to be guards at schools, and for some reason that's frowned upon. And I don't understand that. It's like they're trying to create some false stigma associated with that they don't want that in a school. And it's like, well, but why would you want your school to be a soft target? So, anyways, uh, jump
Well,
in here.
why did Tim Walz say that he was friends with school shooters during the vice presidential debate? It seems like it's sometimes difficult to resist the thought that the gun control people almost glorify mass shootings
Right.
because it helps them push their agenda, and
Yes.
they oppose real solutions that would prevent them because they don't want to prevent them. I mean, it's tempting to conclude that, but I don't want to believe that. But it's hard not to wonder about that.
Yeah. And the incident we were talking about at the church, the Annunciation, that press conference with them standing out in front on the street and the police chief, I was getting mad watching them, the way they were portraying it and playing off the event, and it's like, oh my God, you guys are using this as a publicity stunt to further your agenda. You're not, it was the least, it was one of the least genuine things I've seen in a long time, just shoved right in your face. And I feel people are waking up to that, but at the same time, it doesn't seem like it's being dealt with on the opposition side, at least not noticeably yet. I don't know. I would love to see it, just get more attention that, our schools are soft targets, and who's in our schools are most valuable. our most valuable gifts are our children. And so why do we want our children to be vulnerable? What's wrong with we defend our country with with armed guards. We defend our courthouses with armed guards. Why
I
don't
believe there was, if I recall correctly, there was an incident at a school, I think it was in Colorado, where somebody armed, it might have been a security or it might have been like somebody's dad or something,
Mhm.
but they were I think it was in the boys' room, and some kid had a weapon, was planning on hurting other kids, and the armed individual, I believe it might have been a school security officer,
Sure.
intervened and disarmed the kid, and nobody got hurt. So, and we've seen that in other,
Oh yeah.
like
There's been
Clackamas Mall shooting.
there's been recent ones even this year around the country, and they just get buried in the news. And only the gun groups bring them to the surface, and even then they still don't get a lot of traction unless you follow these gun groups. Otherwise, they really they really try to hide where it's effective to stop people, you
So it
know?
turns out that armed citizens or armed officers, somebody with a gun, a good guy with a gun,
Right.
can stop a bad guy with a gun or a bad girl with a gun, a murderer with a gun, can be stopped by by armed resistance. So if a violent criminal is faced with armed resistance, they either give up, flee, or they get shot. They get
Right.
stopped,
And
which is a good thing, right?
that's a point I've been trying to push to people. So, I have a girlfriend and she lives in a multi-family dwelling apartment complex, whatever. And I've tried to educate her to the point that the people committing these things, they're going the routes they are because it's the path of least resistance. They know they're not, for the most part, nobody's going to stand up to them. So for them, that guarantees them a high likelihood of their success of what they want to do. And that's what
And
they want to do.
apparently, I believe the Annunciation shooter had all these like diaries where he actually talked about
I they leaked out.
the school
Uh,
being a soft target.
yes,
The one in Memphis too. Another one that happened
yes,
last year,
yeah,
similar. So a lot of them have said, yeah, we're targeting these places because they're soft targets. So I think we should be paying attention and hardening these targets, with the buildings, the facilities, the physical environment, but also the people. The people, we should have armed individuals. Like another proposal in the Minnesota legislature this year that's going in the wrong direction
yep,
is going to make it so right now, like if I have a carry permit and I'm picking up my kid up at school in my car, which I used to do when my kids were younger, you know, I can sit in my car and the kid can come out and get in the car and we can, drive
right,
home.
right.
But their proposal now would say, no, you can't do that anymore. That's
Yeah,
you're a
isn't it
criminal.
basically once you're on school property, it's got to be secured and stowed away, that kind of thing, and not out of reach and all that
Well,
kind of stuff?
I believe that the proposal in the legislature right now is it cannot be there at all, period. Nothing,
Okay.
not even in your
Well,
car.
the other thing they're proposing in legislation currently is that so currently schools can give permission for people to be on school property with a firearm, but it's automatically assumed that you're not allowed to. But I don't remember if it was the superintendent or the principal or something. So the way it is written right now, some school in the state decides they want to have armed security, they would be allowed to do that. They want to change the law so the state says there is nobody allowed on school property, no matter what, and taking it away from the school's ability to do that on their own. So, for instance, if they wanted to hire an off duty officer, say there's some risk and parents are concerned, and we would love to have, you know, somebody there because we're concerned about something happening. Now they would not be allowed to do that, at least not an armed officer. And that I feel is really a misjustice because that there again, you're sending that message that we're not going to intervene with this. We're not going to interrupt in a public school and we're going to allow it to be a soft target is the way I see it.
And a related issue, I think, for schools in Minnesota is like high schools that have like football games and other sporting events.
Sure.
sometimes what we have seen, like uh, gang
Yes.
members
Yes.
show
Yep.
up. And again, most gang members are teenagers,
Right.
right? So the average age is under 18. So
Right.
so when they show up at a high school game or sporting event, that's not a huge surprise because that's the right age demographic. You know,
Right.
they may be going to that school, some of them, and so if they show up with guns and start attacking each other because they're wearing the wrong color, they're from
Right.
a different gang or something. Um, so it kind of goes to the idea that criminals or people that are not law abiding, they're going to break the law. They're going to carry in a weapon when they're not allowed. And then the people that are law abiding are going to may comply and disarm themselves or maybe not go there. But the bottom line, all you have is gangbangers with guns. You don't have anybody who's a good guy with a gun. You don't have any
Right.
like dads or moms with a carry permit to
Right.
protect kids. It's
Right.
not a good thing. It's a bad idea. So it's
R-
not. It's so the sporting event. It kind of goes beyond just what we normally think of as school because it's after hours, maybe Friday night or something. But it's still school grounds, and you still wouldn't be able to have a lawful weapon on you.
Right. And yeah, and another one related to that, that's I've been paying attention to this one for years now. Cuz I do have a friend whose dad was in charge of the state fair police. So he was the chief of the state fair police. So it's seasonal work, but um we've been having these roaming gangs at the Minnesota State Fair now for in excess of 5 years. And it's mostly from a certain community. We're not going to go too deep onto that side of it, but it's usually in the evening hours on the weekends, and they're having shootouts and stuff, and they're just doing gang type stuff, pressuring people, being abusive, starting fights and all that stuff. And Minnesota State Fair for a long is still currently, they don't want you to bring firearms there. But there again, criminals are bringing them there. So there again, you're supposed to rely on law enforcement to do its job. You're not supposed to protect yourself. They're supposed to protect you. Now you're in a situation that's highly congested. I don't remember how many hundreds of thousands of people they get in there a day, but you know what I'm getting at. It's like, so you're in a high density area, and it's like, who's going to come save you in an instant? It's like, but there we are. We're coddling the criminals in my mind, and we're preventing the people that would do stuff responsibly to prevent this or at least protect themselves, possibly others. And we're neutering them, and they're being neutered because they're out of fear of repercussions legally for defending themselves. And that's all it does is, like we're saying, it scares the people that don't want to be charged with a crime, that don't want to have to go to court, don't want to have to expend legal fees, don't want to spend maybe some time in jail or be stripped of their rights for doing something like this. It's just it's setting itself up to make it worse for everybody. And it's got to be stopped. I don't know how, but it's all daisy chained together in such a way it just makes things worse.
Yeah, and I think it's what you just mentioned is a related or adjacent topic is self-defense and empowering the individual versus disempowering the individual. So if we are self-reliant people and we rely on ourselves, our families, our communities to help each other, especially when times are tough. Like if we
Right.
have a big snowstorm and we help shovel people out
Right.
and push their car out of the snow or something, or if there's a natural disaster, a storm, trees are falling on the house and we're helping to clear the yard for our neighbor, or they're helping to clear our yard, right? So we want to be strong and self-reliant people, healthy people, and part of that is our ability to defend ourselves from predators and people that would violently attack us. And one of the most effective ways of doing that is with firearms. There's probably no more effective way to do it. And so if the government wants to disarm us, to weaken us, to make us vulnerable to predators who would violently attack us, our children, our families, our communities, we should not we should not allow that. We should not tolerate that. We should push back and say, no, we're not going to allow that. We're going
Right.
to maintain our strength and our individuality and our self-reliance, and we don't want to outsource our personal security to the government. No, thank you. And the police, this is the U.S. Supreme Court has said multiple times that the police have no legal duty to protect you.
I was going to bring
And
that up. I'm glad you did.
my question has been for years, if the U.S. Supreme Court has correctly observed that the police have no legal duty to protect you. In other words, if you
Right.
are violently attacked and the police fail to protect you, you can't sue the police. They have no
Correct.
duty to protect you
Yep.
legally in the United States. So they don't have a duty to protect you. So if the
And then they make it
police have no
extremely difficult
if
for you to protect
if the
yourself.
police have no duty to protect you,
Right.
who is going to protect you and your family and your loved ones and your neighbors and community? Who's going to do that? It's not going to be the police. They're not required to. I know. And by the way, in recent years, I'm in Minneapolis where we have defunded the police. We have a city charter that requires a legal minimum per resident. There's a ratio based on population.
Right.
I believe we're less than half, maybe a third or a quarter of that minimum number. And there's been a federal lawsuit about that. And the Minneapolis is claiming that we're really working hard on it. We've made microscopic progress on this year. We've added a few, but we really don't have too many police, and they're overwhelmed, especially when there's social unrest, which we have had too.
I know
So
some I know some Minneapolis officers, and the ones that have, put in substantial amount of years, like more than 10, they're all just trying to ride it out so they get their retirement. They don't like the political environment of the city currently, the mayor and all that kind of stuff. Don't believe in it. They don't feel like they're being treated. They don't feel like they're being backed up by the government. And it's downsizing. People are taking early retirements. Some people are just trying to wait out their retirements. And then they're kind of, they're doing the DEI hire thing too, where they're not always hiring the most qualified people. And it's not the law enforcement that we knew as a kid, what Minneapolis was, and it's getting watered down. It's getting diluted. It's becoming weaker. And I mean, I've seen the postings for the jobs. It pays pretty well, actually. I think it's like
yeah,
eighty-nine
so
thousand
so
$89,000 a year or something like
so
that.
we have where Minneapolis police are severely underfunded, and they're depopulated. We don't have enough police officers in Minneapolis, and the crime rate has gone up. We have a lot of violent crime. We have a lot of carjackings, car thefts. We have a lot
Yes.
of other violent crimes,
And I'm seeing a lot of catch
murders.
and releases with the ones that are doing the carjackings and stuff.
Yeah, there's that too. But um, there's not a lot of. I mean, there could be more catching than there is because they're not. So one example that comes to mind that's been in the news recently, but it just reminds me of something that's been going on for decades. So in St. Paul now they have they're doing bait cars for car thieves. They're doing bait car stings for people that
Right.
steal cars. So they have a car, it's wired for video,
Sure.
etc., and they observe the car. So it's a bait car.
Right.
And
Right.
then when somebody comes along, some car thief comes to steal the car, they bust them, and they've
Right.
got like rock solid proof
Right.
that's virtually unbeatable, right? So Minneapolis used to do that for years. Minneapolis had bait cars.
Sure.
Today, they just had a news story that I saw the other day. Nope, we don't have bait cars in Minneapolis because we don't have enough police officers. We don't have enough funding.
Right.
Bottom line, they don't have it here. So St. Paul is doing so if you look at car thefts in St. Paul versus Minneapolis, there's a much more of it going on in Minneapolis than in St. Paul. So that's an interesting. So I think whether people like it or not, there definitely is a correlation between more policing and less crime. In Minneapolis, ever since we've had less policing, we have massively more crime. And guess what else happens? When we have massively more crime, property values decline. Downtown Minneapolis is being vacated, has been vacated by the business community.
Right.
And the property values of these big buildings are plummeting. And because the property values are plummeting, the property tax base of the city is plummeting, and more of the
Hmm.
burden is being put on homeowners because there's
Right.
not enough business. So the people that don't like business, their wish is coming true. The businesses
Right.
are disappearing, so they're not paying taxes. And so the people who have apartments pay rent in apartments. Most rent, or the biggest component of rent, is not a mortgage, it's the taxes. Same thing with your home.
Right.
Your property tax now is so high, um, and it's getting higher. It's going to get higher in Minneapolis. It's because we have underfunded the police, which has caused massive crime increase, and now property tax increase. So it's there's a kind of a domino effect, or
Right.
one thing affects another and it expands. So it's a big problem. But I think in the end, because we don't have police right now, especially right now, we definitely need to have a firearm, and we definitely need to learn some self-defense skills, and we need to learn about the law of self-defense so that we can not only survive the attack but also survive the court
Right.
prosecution, should that come, which it can come. If you have been forced to use a weapon in self-defense, you may end up
Right.
in court as a defendant, as a criminal defendant, even though you don't think of yourself as a criminal because you're a good guy. But
Right.
guess what? It could happen.
Yeah, that was one of my concealed carry instructors. He emphasized that a lot. He really emphasized not discharging if you don't have to. And he always held his cell phone up. He's like, this is the first thing you do. If you have no other recourse, if you're feel you got to use your firearm and you have no way out of that situation, then of course do it. But he goes, if you drop the hammer on somebody, you're probably going to end up in courts, even if that person has no close relatives, wasn't married, it doesn't matter. Somebody's gonna dig up a relative and then push them to make a court case out of it for, in civil court. And he says, your life's gonna change forever, not just because of the trauma of dealing with it. There's people just want to wring you out in court, and your average person can't survive that financially.
I would worry more about the criminal prosecution personally, but that
Sure.
could, yeah, there's a possibility of civil too.
Yeah. But anyways, point being, it's just you get scared to even defend yourself. I mean, I know in the situation I would do what I felt was necessary, but when you think about it, when you're not under that stress, it's like, God, would I really want to drop the hammer on somebody? Because I can think of all these scenarios where my life would be miserable because of doing it. It's like
I
you
mean,
you you start.
personally, I would not, even if there were no legal repercussions potentially at all, ever, I
Hmm.
would never want to use a weapon against somebody.
No, 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 no.
I don't need an external regulator. I have an internal understanding that you don't use violence against other people
Right.
unless you are required to do so.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine. He was a bouncer at Grumpy's on Washington. And oh boy, how many years ago was this? It was over 5 years ago. He had a guy trying to get into the bar and he was working the door, and the guy was under the influence, and they don't let people in that are already drunk or under the influence, whatever. Sends them away. Guy comes back with a knife, attacks him. And he uses his collapsible baton first to defend himself. He gets backed into a hedge and he can no longer raise his arm to strike or anything. And he drops him with his handgun. And Minneapolis did not charge him. They thought it was justified and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, he's not the same, mentally. That's not it's not like the movies, here I'm justified in doing this, so I'm okay with it. No, it's taking somebody's life is not it's not something that you just walk away from unscathed, you know.
Right, right. It's not something anybody wants to do.
Right.
But on the other hand, if you see somebody trying to murder a bunch of people,
Right.
then and you are armed, you don't have to do anything. because
Right.
the police don't have to do anything, like the
Right.
Texas school shooting thing. The cops
Right.
can just sit around and watch. They don't really have to do anything legally.
Right.
But you may choose to do something to save those
Right.
innocent people because you have the capability because you're armed with a firearm.
Right.
And so if you do, um, we should not be prosecuting you.
Right. Right.
We should not be trying to label you a criminal and put you in prison.
Right. And then smear you in the media for vigilante justice or it's like,
Hmm.
yeah, it's dangerous where the media is at right now. I'm glad it's kind of falling apart in some arenas and it needs to be knocked down and zeroed out and start over or however you want to explain it. I'm kind of glad the newspapers are dissolving because our local newspapers were heavily biased and they're kind of disappearing. And yeah, the media has so much influence. It's a subtle form of brainwashing for those who dive into it and live and breathe it or whatever you want to call it. But
Yeah, I mean, I think the media is like a mirror to some extent. It reflects us as a society, maybe not as an individual. So, in
sure,
our society, the people on the left may not like the people on the right. The people on the right may not like the people on the left.
right,
Um, hopefully, ideally they can still have a conversation and not have hatred.
right,
But it's getting more common that they have hatred. But um, unfortunately, but hopefully we can get back to civility someday. And really, it's up
yeah,
to us as an individual. But I think the media, whether we like it or not, it reflects all of us as a whole, not me as an individual. So me as
right.
an individual, I may or may not agree with a particular media outlet, but
Right. But it's also
but
it's spilling over into politics too, like we talked yesterday, just about how polarized it is now. There's doesn't seem middle ground on many topics anymore, if there is at all, especially at the federal level, you know.
yeah, I think the media there used to be fewer media channels, and so there was more of a because there were fewer media channels, they had to kind of moderate their positions on various things, and so people had fewer sources that were more moderate, and so we were more unified in that way. We had more similarity in our thinking on different issues as a result, partly as a result of that. Although partly that happened, it goes back and forth. It's like a mirror. Like where does it begin? Which side of the mirror does it come from? But nowadays we have more fragmented media. We've got the internet, multiple channels. We've got so the legacy media is a small shadow of what it once was,
Right.
and we kind of ignore. I mean, I pretty much ignore it for the most part, and I think most people do.
Honest to God, I don't think I've watched regular TV now in like 15 years. I mean, like flip on ABC, NBC, any of that stuff, any of their programming. I just walked away from it. It's like it just felt like brain rot. It felt like it had an underlying message just trying to sway you in a direction. It kind of always felt like it was just kind of pushing you towards somewhere. It's like, I don't really believe this. And it just, like I said, it kind of like what our parents used to say to us: you watch too much TV, your brain's going to rot. I kind of feel like that's the way it is now.
Yeah, I mean it's there's so many because of the many channels of media information, we can always find or we're more likely to be able to find one that agrees with our point of view,
Right.
whatever that may be.
Right.
And then we're going to ignore the ones or boycott
Right.
or exclude the ones
Just filter them
that
out.
kind of
Right. Yeah. Right.
that annoy us. So if we lean to the right, we're not going to want to watch Disney, ABC, or any of their products that have a lot of opinion, like their late night so-called comedy,
Right.
or even their news productions, that seem to be very, very left wing leaning. But other people think maybe a different way about other things that
Right.
I may be interested in a point of view that other people are not. So who knows? But um, we've got to figure out a way to work through all that.
Yeah, and I think part of that is people not directly communicating with each other, and it's become socially acceptable to make anyone your enemy that doesn't believe exactly as you do, and then you label them, target them, and now they're an enemy versus somebody that just disagrees with you. And
Yeah,
we're roughly the same age, and growing up, I know the way I was raised was there was pretty much three topics you didn't talk with other people unless you really knew them, sex, religion, what was the other one?
politics.
Politics. Yeah, exactly. Unless you know exactly what they were. And you didn't even really even tiptoe on that stuff, like even bridge into it. It was just like, I only know this person on this level, and that's all I really need to know them on that level. And now made so much stuff public that everybody has to know my sex, everybody needs to know my religion, everybody needs to know my politics. And if you're against me, you're my enemy. Or I mean, if you're not against me, but if you don't believe what I do, then you are an enemy. You're a target, and that's and it causes the divide based on those criterias, whether it be race, religion, whatever. And it's like we're adding more and more reasons to not like somebody else before we even know them. He's automatically this because he's this. She's automatically that because she supports that. And that's a way to divide the country. And that's what ultimately is happening is this great division. On whatever level, it's multi levels. It's class warfare, it's racism, it's whatever. It's multifaceted. And all it does is drive us apart. It prevents us from being more community oriented. It prevents us from wanting to get involved with community because you just want to be around like minds and feel safe. Well, that's why we're falling apart, I feel.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a challenge that we have to come to grips with and figure out and try to overcome. But to me, it's about humanization versus dehumanization, and that's
Sure.
part of my work, part of my job with um, the courts and with criminal prosecution. Criminal prosecution, from my point of view, is all about dehumanizing the accused. So, if because human beings, we instinctively don't want to hurt other people.
Right.
We really don't want to hurt other people. So when somebody goes into the military, they have to train the heck out of us
Right.
to get us to the point where we're willing to kill somebody
Right.
in a war.
Right.
And it's been going on for a long time, but for thousands of years or longer, um, people have been training soldiers to overcome that,
Right.
and it's not easy to do. So it's not natural.
Right.
And so, in order to be willing to hurt someone, if you're a soldier or a juror, it's easier to hurt someone if you don't think of them as a human being. If you think of them
Right.
as a monster
Right.
or some, horrible thing, non-human thing. Not,
Right.
not, not any, no one, they're not a human being. They're not like you. They're the other. They're somebody who is not like you. They're somebody who um, deserves to be hurt somehow. So it's all about dehumanization versus humanization. So I want to humanize people. I don't want people to
Right.
hurt my client. I want people to
Right.
be human and to be compassionate and to build a bridge. Um, but I think, in the political world, we, all of us, we all live with each other in a community. A lot, we have different communities. We have large, we have our family, we have our local community, we have our larger communities that we are all part of. But we need to figure out a way to get along with each other and to see each other as human beings and to not just judge each other and hate each other. I think, who was it that said? I think, was it Mother Teresa who said, um, "If I judge you, I can't love you."
Sure.
And I think, love is the opposite of judgment. So if we judge people,
Right.
we're not loving them. If you love someone, in the sense of, I hate to use Jesus, but it doesn't have to be him. It could be Buddha, or it could be a lot
Sure.
of
Right. Right. Right.
religions that talk
Yep.
talk about. talk about love, not in the romantic sense of love, but a love in the sense of embracing other people and caring for them. So
or you could use the word respect.
yeah, respect, or wanting, having goodwill, wishing well, and living together with other people in peace, harmony, and cooperation. That kind
Right.
of love, and that kind of community and that kind of love cannot happen when we judge each other.
Right.
So
And
that's a big problem.
that's like the downfall of the internet. There's this non-connection with people, and you're communicating with them. So you are dehumanizing people when you use the internet most of the time, because you're seeing a screen name and this person infuriates you with their opinions or views, and you feel empowered to just, now they're the enemy and I'm going to fight back. You're not seeing them as a person. You're seeing them as a screen name. Thomas Gallagher. He said something I don't like. Now I don't like Thomas Gallagher. But if they
Right.
met you, spent time with you, and there's no personal experience with the internet. The internet in all its glory, there's such a huge downside that goes along with it. And that's part of it. We go back to, like, I was talking to you yesterday about during the misinformation during the flu, the Chinese pandemic. And we wanted to discredit everybody that didn't agree with whatever was being told to us was the truth, and we couldn't question anything. And then what we do with all the people that disagreed, we demonized them, we stripped them of their lives. That's North Korea type stuff, and that's happening inside the USA. I mean, that's scary. But they qualify it with, we're saving lives. And that's the spin all the time. They got that spin
Right.
that gets the broader public approval. It's like, to the lesser mind, or I'm not trying to belittle people that can't see through it, but it gets enough public approval where it gets momentum. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. We're what? He disagreed with you, and now he's no longer to practice medicine. You know how screwed up that is? How would you? He's been dehumanized. How would you feel if you were stripped of your ability to take care of your family? Now your children are suffering. Your wife is suffering. People that rely on you are suffering. But because the person disagreed, we're going to strip them of everything. That's so messed up.
Yeah, I think what we see through history is that criminals feel justified usually in whatever they did, whatever criminal act they performed, they felt it was justified at the time,
Right.
usually. And governments, when they take people's lives or their property or their liberty,
Right.
they feel justified. They offer a
Right.
justification. There's
Right.
always a justification.
Yep.
So, and that's why Benjamin Franklin said, there's several quotes that are really quite similar that we have of him, because he wrote a lot. But essentially, you cannot sacrifice liberty to get safety, because it doesn't work.
Right.
And he's talking about that because that is the very sales pitch that they provide. That, in order for the authority figures to maintain your safety for you, you need to give up your freedom. Because if you'll just step into this cage we've got for you with a nice warm environment, with a pillow for you to sit on, we'll keep you perfectly safe in that cage.
Mm-hmm.
They say,
Right. Right.
but it's not true. But
The
so all
the
these
people
things, like feeding,
the people that aren't obligated to defend us are going to try to make it safe for us.
or another very common one is, people have a soft spot in their heart for children. It's kind of
Right.
instinctive.
Right.
It's sort of biological, right? We care about children. We love children.
They're vulnerable.
Um,
Right. Yep.
exactly. So if you want people to voluntarily pay more taxes, well, you should pay us more of your tax money. I know you're overtaxed now, But if you give a little bit more, in fact, it's only the equivalent of $50 a month. Wouldn't $50 a month? Do you think you could
Yeah.
possibly spare another $50 a month in
Right.
taxes, in property tax, sales tax,
Yeah. And why would you
tabs,
say no to that? This is for the greater
tabs on
good.
your
Yeah.
tabs on your car and your license
Yeah.
plate
Yeah.
or your income tax or whatever? $50 a month, because that's all it would take for us to be feeding our future.
Right. I like how you very apropos. Yes.
Just let us tax you a little bit more and a little bit more, and
Imagine
oh,
if they
by the way, a
use
little bit more,
imagine if they use
because we
Sally
need to
Struthers for
feed.
their marketing.
There are hungry children. In fact, you know what? I've never seen a hungry child in real life. I don't
Right.
think I've ever seen one.
Not in this country.
But
Well,
I grew up in
yeah.
Minnesota. Yeah, I have never seen a hungry child or a starving child in real life. I've heard stories from friends growing up that had like 8 siblings and they had to fight at the dinner table to
Yeah. I
grab the
mean,
food. But
I've known
I don't
families
think they
that
were starving. I think they were just like
yeah.
spirited or
I
something.
mean, I knew the families that got government cheese and stuff like that and all this non-labeled food product that the government supplied back in the day and so I know they were
Farm subsidy
hurting,
food.
but I didn't know that I never saw them starving. I mean, they were
Yeah,
financially not doing as well as everybody else, but they were fed, you know.
right. But in the last 7, 8 years in Minnesota, there have been quite a significant number of charities that were sold to us, or the sales pitch was that
Right.
they're going to eliminate hunger in Minnesota
Right.
or something like that. And it seems like almost all of them have turned out to be
Fraudulent, right.
fraudulent. So if you're going to commit fraud, you want to do it in the name of feeding children,
Yep.
taking care of veterans,
Safety.
giving handicapped people transportation,
Yep.
home care for people who
Yep.
cannot care for themselves. Autistic children. I mean, I volunteered for autistic children, so I'm not
Mhm.
trying to make light of
No,
any of
yeah,
these
and I
problems,
there's
but
autistic chil there's autistic
people
children in
are
my world. I know it's a valid thing, but oh
the
my gosh,
government,
yeah.
the government and fraud criminals who want to commit fraud combined with the government together are using sympathetic
Right.
causes like autistic children,
Yep.
hungry
Yep.
people, veterans. These
Yep.
causes are being exploited, or school shootings. These are all being exploited for
Right.
political gain.
Yep. Yep.
And it's very cynical and it's very disgusting, right?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And those people implementing that, all they're thinking about is furthering their career within the political system. And then, like we talked about, some laws that really are they effective or not? No, but I can say I passed this piece of gun legislation. I'm out there working for you, Joe Public. See what I'm doing, even if the thing doesn't work or not. But it sounds good. It sounds right. It sounds like they're doing the good thing. And then you get these people exploit or revealing, pulling the curtain back and looking behind it. It's like, and we all, honest to God, we've all suspected this for a long time because our spending on social programs in this state, it's like, oh my gosh, they just revealed the numbers in New York City. So the homeless program, I don't have numbers for our state, but for New York, the state of New York, they spend on average $88,000 per homeless person. Do you know what the median income is for the state of New York? 88,000. They could just hand that money directly and they would have average wages, the homeless community. That's so fucked up. That is just when you
Yeah.
when you start to break it down to real numbers where everybody understands it, it's like just give them a check for 88 grand and be done with it, I mean, if you're gonna be that blatantly stealing our money from us, how about you just give it to them directly? I wouldn't feel so bad. Instead of everybody else dipping their fingers in along the way. Yeah. Yeah. Ronald Reagan. The 9 worst words you'll ever hear. Hi, we're here from we're here to help you, and we're from the government, or whatever it was. Oh, lordy. Yeah. I don't know. It's sometimes I agree with the idea of civil war because complete collapse, but of course that is apocalyptic type stuff that nobody wants to live with. And that's just kind of that black and white response to a situation. But then how do you gradually steer it back over time? And and why that sticks out with me so much is I saw an interview with a gentleman that helped with the moon program, and he helped develop the Saturn rocket. And that's something that took years upon years with great continuity between many different companies and businesses because everything was hand drawn. They had to relay information. I mean, it is a huge undertaking to make that Saturn rocket in that day. And he talked about, he says, as a country, we will never get to Mars. Not that I think we need to get there, but he says it'll never happen because a presidential term's 4 years, and it may get in there and it'll happen, but then somebody else gets elected, they won't maintain it, and the first thing they'll do is stop it. And so, like we had talked about before, was there not that I'm trying to sell the Mars program, but stuff that's deemed as for the greater good, one side can find complete reason why to stop it, even if it is truly beneficial, just because. And so it's going to be really hard for us to ever move forward in our current climate, I guess is my point, because stuff gets unraveled. I mean, Trump, he's making an effort on certain fronts, and I admire him for that. But whatever he's doing isn't going to unravel at all and get us back on the right direction. It's an attempt to do some things, but if somebody completely opposite him gets into office the next term, all of his stuff will just go out the window, just like that, because like we said before, how polarized everything is. So it's hard for me to imagine ever getting back on course where it's for the greater good of the people, I guess is my point.
I mean, I think that it's never going to be, we're never going to be satisfied because we're human.
True, true,
We take for granted all the good things and
true,
we notice the things that are not perfect.
true.
And so, I think if you had this conversation in the 1960s or in the 2000s, it would not be so different. The perception is similar. We think that there are many problems in the world, and sometimes they seem overwhelming and insurmountable. But I think that we have to take an individual has to empower themselves to begin with. So you have to have your own mental health. You have to charge your own battery. You have to strengthen yourself as an individual first, through your religion, through your philosophy, through whatever, through your athletic program or whatever it is. You need to do that. You need to be a strong, healthy person. That's really important, and that's the
I
first
let me
thing you.
interrupt you. Let me interrupt you for a second. I remember we were talking about Darwin Hallstrom yesterday, and I messaged him that you were going to be on today, and he said to say hi. But I remember the term he was using that was on that topic was personal sovereignty.
Yes, right. And so that's where it starts. So I think if you think of the image of, maybe a lake or a pond of calm water, and then somebody tosses a pebble into the pond, and then the waves radiate outward from
Right,
the where the pebble made the impact with the water. So that is a good image or metaphor for us as individuals. We are the pebble that's hitting the water,
right.
and it's things are radiating out from us. So, cause and effect. We do things, and they cause actions which have effects. So, and then other people are doing that as well. So we kind of feed off each other, but we really need to have our own character, strength of character, mental health, and um, and once we have that, then we can start working with other people around us. And it's easier to work with other people that are near you, which is why I think our government should be decentralized and local rather than um, intergalactic, you know, or United Nations or Washington, D.C. I don't favor those. I favor local over far away foreign rulers, you know, whether it's the Roman Empire or whatever it might be. We really should have more local control. But it starts with the individual and the family, the community, and we should really build out from there. And we can do it. And we can humanize ourselves and humanize each other, and we can recognize all the problems, and we can still maintain an optimistic um, attitude that yes, we can make things better, starting with ourselves and then radiating outwards. It's definitely possible. We can do
Yeah,
it, and
that was
many
that
of
was
us have done it. And
right. And something I got from our conversation yesterday that enlightened me was, I don't remember your exact words, but it was kind of like when you get things good within your own world first, not always looking, basically look within versus look outside of your world. And I think that's a common knee jerk reaction is people having trouble in lives and they look outside themselves and blame their surroundings versus standing in front of the mirror and saying, how did I contribute to this? What did I do to make this happen? I'm not, because honest to God, I like psychology stuff. And one of the most destructive thing you can do is blame somebody else and not take accountability. I mean, you can't grow. You can't
right, I mean,
learn anything.
even if the reality is, we can't control everything in our life. On the other hand, another reality is we can control a lot of things that happen in our lives. So those two things, those two ideas seem contradictory, but they're actually not. There's some things we cannot control and there's some things we can. So those things can that that could those are both true statements. We both have control and we also lack control at any
Right.
given time.
Right.
However, if we focus on the things that we can't control and blame those things and attribute responsibility for our situation to the things beyond our control, that means we have no power. That means we ourselves have made ourselves powerless by choice,
Right.
right? We've chosen to disempower
And
ourselves.
that,
On the other
right.
on the other hand, if instead of that we focus on the things we do have control over, and then we try to do what we can to improve things, usually that will work to some extent. And then over time, it will have a bigger effect over time. So we end up empowering ourselves, we end up having a bigger impact. And that success that we experience because of our own effort leads us to become more optimistic and less pessimistic.
Right.
And it becomes what some might call a virtuous cycle of
Right.
empowerment. And we
Right.
can expand that beyond our individual self to the people around us and our community. And we can be successful. We can overcome all of the problems. We can overcome them all
Right.
one by one, starting with ourselves, starting with the people around us, and working outward from there. Just like a pebble hitting the surface of a
Right.
pond, we can radiate outward our own spiritual strength that we develop, and that benefits the whole world. It's like the butterfly effect.
Right.
What we do in our life can have unknown, unintended consequences, or unexpected consequences that could be huge. It could end up being a tidal wave of change for the world for the better. We just don't know it,
Right.
but it could be. And it will, if it doesn't have that, it will have a more modest, humble effect, but it will have a positive effect. It's guaranteed. It will always have that positive effect.
I got a question from a Ducati owner that you may know, John Bachland. He said, he said, I asked Thomas how the Wing Chun practice is going, or Wing Chun.
I've kind of let it slip. So I feel bad about that. I was for several years. I was working out with my martial arts pals on Wing Chun Kung Fu,
Okay.
but I've kind of let it go, and I feel kind of ashamed of that. But what can I say? It's the truth.
Uh huh.
But it's a good philosophy, and it's a good workout too.
Sure. Sure.
I think John is into that as well, into the
Yeah.
athletics and martial arts.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
It's great. It's a great mindset, and it's empowering. It empowers you. I think part of the spiritual empowerment that we could all benefit from
Sure.
is it's connected somehow to physical fitness, I think. And martial arts is, I used to say that martial arts is the least boring workout you'll ever find.
Mhm. Yeah.
Sometimes you go to the gym, you're pumping iron or something, it could be a little boring.
Right.
You might
Right.
have to put some music on. But with martial arts, it's never boring because you're fighting somebody all the time.
Right.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and that's I mean, I'm kind of on a personal health journey right now. I've kind of let go of my health a little bit and I'm trying to get back on track. I'm kind of not to blame anybody, but I'm under a lot of stress in other situations in my life and I've kind of just let things fall to the wayside, let's just say. And I'm at a high weight again and that's it's disappointing, but it's also empowering. It's like, okay, I don't want to be this way. And that I mean, ultimately, that's how you get yourself out of situations is you just decide, I no longer want this. I'm going to do something about it. And that's how things happen. And whether than being a defeatist, a pessimist, a victim, whatever you want to call it, it doesn't need, we don't need to know that part of it because we don't want to focus on that part of it. You know, we want to do what's best for us. And so you have to focus on what's best and then
Yeah.
find that direction, find that power within. Sometimes you just find other people to in your support system, and that's great too. If you got a community of people of like minds that you can
I
draw
think
support from.
it helps to be honest with yourself as well.
Hmm.
So it's great to be aspirational, but it's destructive to be judgmental. And
Yes.
so if you can be honest with yourself and others and yourself will not judge you. You know, if someone can be honest without fear of being judged and condemned, then it's easier to be honest, and that's very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. You're yeah. You can be your own worst enemy to hamper your success, your progress, any forward motion. It's the self defeatist thing. It's the most destructive thing to you, you know, mentally than anything is your own barriers you create for yourself. And you look at all the people you may see as successful entrepreneurs and stuff. That's the power they have. They don't. They you know, kind of going back to the simple one. It's like it wasn't a failure. It was something I learned from, and then I tried again.
That's right.
So, oh lordy, got a little bit off track, but that was fun. Uh Anything else to go back on the gun law stuff that you can think of that we may want to touch on again, or
I don't know. I mean, I think that's what I do. So if you're curious about something, I
what do
can
you think
answer
about
it.
the upcoming legislations that are proposed as far as their likelihood of ever getting through? You know, we talked a little bit about the preemption thing. Do you think well, I mean, I guess we need to deal with reality more than hypothesizing. But one thing I wanted to emphasize with people was the thing I talked about yesterday in regards to like we talked about chipping away by getting your foot, you know, legislation getting their foot in the door to expand further. And the one thing I was using as an example was the binary trigger. Here's this innocuous thing that doesn't appeal to everybody in the firearm community, but if allowed to be outlawed, deemed illegal, whatever, they, you know, and using under the guise of safety that no firearm needs to fire this fast. And then they can dissect, well, what is fast? Well, now we can say whatever, a semi-automatic rifle is fast. So now let's say everything's semi-automatic. And so they're trying to pass the binary trigger thing again because it was attached to an omnibus bill and the Supreme Court, state Supreme Court said they couldn't do it that way, was my understanding.
Yeah, I think they just had an oral argument on that, and
Yes.
I think what a lot of people believe based on the way the oral argument went is that the Supreme Court sounds like they're likely to strike that down. but they haven't issued their opinion yet, so it's possible they could have just be faking us all out, but probably not. But yeah, the mega monster omnibus bill
Right.
that the DFL last year they had, I think it looked like, I saw pictures of it. It was like a foot or a foot and a half, 2 feet thick of paper. So they dropped that like 5 minutes before midnight. So obviously nobody could read it,
Right.
and then they voted on it and passed it. So they suspended the rules. They passed, like massive legislation that nobody had even had a chance to read. So it's really a violation of all the principles of our democratic system in Minnesota, the
Right.
legislative process. Normally, you want to have a bill that people can read, have enough time to read it, have committee hearings so the public is informed, has a chance to weigh in on these things, and to object if they want to object, or to shape it if it needs to be
Right.
shaped. But of course, what they did is they put a massive number of laws all together in this monster omnibus bill that they passed that nobody could read at the last minute, literally. And so, meanwhile, that's illegal under the
Right.
Minnesota Constitution. The bills are supposed to have a single subject. And so the courts have been very shy about interfering with the democratic process. Judges and courts and lawyers have been taught, I was taught in law school, the three branches of government are the legislative branch, the executive branch, which at the state level is the governor, and then the court branch, which at Minnesota is the Minnesota Supreme Court. So the courts do not want to ever do anything to interfere with either of the other two branches if they possibly can avoid it. That's based on what we call the separation of powers doctrine. So the three branches of government are separate, and there's a separation of powers, and one should not trespass upon the other, because that's how the system was set up. It's healthier that way. We'll have a free society if we can maintain that, is the idea. So the courts don't want to, it's kind of like if the kids are fighting and they want to run to mom and dad, and
Right.
mom and dad, Susie is being unfair to me. Oh, no, Susie says Johnny's being unfair, and mom or dad is like, you know what? Why don't you kids work it out, because you guys need to figure out how to work stuff out. You can't just run to mommy and daddy all the time. I mean, I don't think it's kind of a bad analogy, because the Supreme Court is not mommy and daddy. They're all equal. There's no branch of government is superior to the other. They're co-equal.
Right. Right.
But the idea is that the courts don't want to be drawn in to a conflict that's really a legislative conflict, that they should figure it out, right? Unless they absolutely have to, because it's unconstitutional. And I think what's happened there is that they have, in the past there have been lawsuits where the legislature, to most of us like me, it's like, wow, that did violate the single subject rule. And the courts are kind of wimping out. They're just chickening out. They're
Sure.
not stepping up.
Right.
They really should be weighing in, because it does violate the Constitution. That's what their job is. They're not doing their job, some thought. But I think in this particular example, this one is the most egregious example in the history of Minnesota. I don't think there's ever been anything this bad, where
Right.
you've got, it's not just like three subjects that have
Right.
been
Right.
combined when it's supposed to be only one. Because every omnibus bill is a violation, because the very word omnibus means many. So omni means many in Latin. So omnibus bill means many subjects in one bill. However, in the past, we've had the public safety omnibus bill. So even though there's 100 topics in the public safety omnibus bill, or 500 topics, they all relate to public safety. At least there's a broad category
Right.
that they all relate to. This one, no, there's no broad category. It's the kitchen sink and everything
Right.
else beside. It's a whole junkyard full of stuff.
Right.
So this one is just horrific. And I hope they strike down the whole thing. But they're definitely going to strike. Well, many of us think they are going to strike down the forced reset trigger, or the
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. It sounds like that's likely, and I know
Because the
Minnes
gun owners caucus, the Minnesota gun owners caucus that we were talking about before, they brought that litigation. They were the plaintiff. So the idea there would be, well, we're only going to grant relief to the complaining party, not to everybody
Right,
who, we're not going to give everybody a free ride hitchhiking off these guys. These guys brought it to court, other the other people didn't get a chance to weigh in on their arguments, so the court's not gonna they're gonna use that as a reason or excuse perhaps to not weigh in on it and just hope that maybe this shot over the bow will teach the legislature, hey, shape up, stop doing that.
right. Yeah, I just wanna mention Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus again. They are the ones who are actively pursuing that right now, and they are maintaining they said they would continue to work on trying to get the whole bill, thrown out completely, not just the subject matter regarding 2A stuff. So they said they're actively gonna pursue it. So like we said
I mean,
earlier.
they already have. It's already the Supreme Court has already heard the argument, and it's kind of their work is done. It's really now up to the court to
Sure.
work on their decision, probably
Right,
for 6 months or something. But yeah,
right. But anyways, Minnesota Gun Caucus owners, that's the only group really in Minnesota active right now that's doing legal pursuits to protect our rights. So if you want to
yeah,
support anybody,
The Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus
yep, I got their
is the only
logo up
group
on the
I know
screen.
of.
Me
It's the only
too.
group I know of that's doing public grassroots lobbying, I would call it. So they are we. I'm a member, so I guess I want to say we.
Sure.
It's because I'm a member, and a lot of us are members of the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus, meaning we throw them a little money every month.
Yep.
Um, but so I'm a member. I feel like we, the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus, even though I'm just a humble member, but we are grassroots organizing the people of Minnesota to get more involved in Second Amendment issues in Minnesota. And we're also lobbying the legislature, the lawmakers, the elected officials at the legislature. So we have a lobbyist who gets paid. I don't think it's a huge amount, but they
Right.
get paid. They're able to, survive and do that. Because actually, one year I did lobbying as a volunteer, and I learned it's a lot of work. It's
Yeah.
incredibly time consuming.
Yes.
Um, so and we so yeah, it's mostly volunteers. I mean, the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus is probably 95% or more powered by volunteer work. But
Right.
there's a few people getting paid in key positions, and so it's important that we contribute financially, but also to volunteer time and to
Yep.
go to meetings and things like that. That you can go to a meeting every month on a Saturday. There's a meeting for people that want to show up and meet people that are of like mind on that. But so, and then there's also lawsuits. There's also the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus is paying lawyers to um, sue the government and other people, I guess, when the need arises to advance the cause of Second Amendment rights for all of us. So it's a great organization, and the people involved. I know most of them, and I think they're fantastic people. They work hard and they're
Hmm.
smart, and they're exactly the people we need doing this.
Yeah. And
But
there,
we all need to get more involved. I think it's
yes.
a group like that. It's really, I mean, they're providing great leadership, but it's up. I mean, I think a great leader, what defines a great leader is creating more great leaders. So
Yes.
that's what they're doing. They're educating people, they're teaching people how to become a great leader,
Right.
especially on that cause, on that issue. And it's a
Right.
not, oh, by the way, it's a nonpartisan group. It's not a partisan group. It's not a Republican group. It's not a Democrat group. It's not a
Right.
third party group. It has nothing to do with partisan politics. It
Yep.
has only to do with the issue of our Second Amendment rights. And we do have, believe it or not, we have many members of the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus who are liberal, who identify as liberal politically, other than the gun issue.
Sure. Sure.
And we at the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus, and I say that as a member,
Right.
humble member, we embrace people regardless of their other
Political
political
affiliation.
views.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you're a socialist. There's the socialist gun owners. I don't know their name, but um, God bless them. If they're for the Second Amendment, then so
Right.
are we. We're all for the Second Amendment. You know, whatever good or bad other ideas we may have, we all agree on this one thing, and we
Right.
come together in the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus.
Mhm. Yeah, support those that keep our rights alive, and um it's very important because a lot of times this stuff is just teetering on flipping each direction. So sometimes even the littlest amount of effort protects our rights. I mean, even as simple as sharing their social media content on your own page just to help get the word out so you know what's coming up. And sometimes that motivates people to lean on their elected officials and say, look, I don't want you to vote in favor of this. I want you to protect my rights. And as much as sometimes we don't think that makes a difference, you can lean on your elected officials. And if you get enough people burning a hole in their ear, they're usually generally they do record all the messages that come in and they are well aware of it's you're not speaking into a hole. Trust me.
That's true. That's true. I mean, I think sometimes people feel like, you know, my elected official, they're already on my side, so I don't need to bug
Sure.
them.
Right.
Or they're already against my view
Right.
on the Second Amendment or whatever other issue it might
Right.
be. So therefore, why bother contacting them? But in reality, if they're for you, they need to hear from you so they feel
Empowered.
more confidence,
Yeah.
empowered, more confidence. They feel like you got their back.
Right.
And if you're elected official, if you're someone like me who lives in Minneapolis, and my elected officials are all anti-Second Amendment, they need to hear from me
Right.
because they need to know that some people don't agree about this issue.
Right.
So if they hear from a lot of people in their that are constituents, and constituents are the people that get the most attention and interest from elected officials. They don't care so much if you live in a different district. Who cares? Why should they care?
Right. Right.
But if you could vote for them or vote against them, they
Yep.
care. Or if you contribute money, they care a
Or if you
lot. So
represent a group with many members, you can say, look, Minnesota Gun Caucus owners doesn't, we have a lot of people live in your district and we're really not in favor of you pursuing this and whatever.
yeah, I mean, I don't think an elected official would credit that very much because it, what they really credit is the people in their district that they actually hear from.
Actually vote for right.
So if I communicate, so the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus for many issues on their webpage, you can click on the bill or the issue that you want to weigh in on, and a lot of times it's because there's a committee hearing. Like today, there's a committee hearing on repealing preemption on gun laws. So
Right.
statewide preemption. They want to the gun control people want to repeal that so that every community can have its own different gun
Independent gun
laws.
laws of the state.
So
Right.
so when you drive an hour or two down the highway, you pass through like 7 communities with 7 different sets of laws.
Right.
So that's going to be very difficult for people to be legal in one city and a criminal in a different one. So most people don't even know about city laws or
Right.
local municipal laws.
Right. Right. Yep.
I don't think anybody knows, or very few. You know, theoretically, yeah, you could go look up. I'm going to go to Edina today, so I better go look at the Edina website and read their 1,000 page city code.
Right.
And most people aren't going to do that.
Right.
So, but they could get busted for if when they drive through Edina because they're not following their city laws. So, repealing preemption seems like a terrible idea, but that's today. It just happens. There's a legislative committee hearing on that. So the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus has a web page on that, and there they have many issue groups have this where you can click on a pre-written letter that automatically will be you type in your address and it will fill in your elected officials for your address because
Right.
people a lot of times have a hard time figuring out who is the guy that represents or the lady who
Right.
represents my
Right.
district,
Right.
the state senator or state representative. So they fill that in automatically for you so you don't have to worry about that. And they give you a pre-written letter, and then you can amend it or delete it and write your own letter, or you can just add a paragraph or something, or change it the way you want to, and then you click send and it goes out to them.
Right.
automatically. And when I do that, um, one of my elected officials just never responds,
Sure.
but one of them responds all the time. And so actually, I do, even though I don't agree with that guy, I do respect the fact that he does respond.
Right. You get at least to feel that they're doing their job and not
Well,
ignoring people that don't agree
they're
with
at
them.
least acknowledging that you reached out to them
Right.
versus, my other elected official
Right.
just they're ghosting me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so it does, it, all these things are noticed and they all matter. But so the elected official, if they, they have the opposing view, but they get a ton of contacts, whether it's telephone, email, or whatever other forms of contact they get,
Mhm.
or they see social media contacts as well on an issue. They start to realize, wow, this is really unpopular. Maybe I should ease off this a little bit or a lot. So it's hard to do when it's partisan, because there's a lot of partisan control where the party leadership, the legislature, they whip you. They say, we're
Right.
not going to, if you don't fall in line on this vote, we're not going to give you all this money for your election campaign.
Right.
They do things like that. But it helps because if all this grassroots activism, if the people, the regular normal people who work for a living, take the time to communicate with their elected officials, that's important. And they notice it and they start to realize that they're going to lose some votes. If people
Right.
get steamed up about something, they may vote the other way next time.
Right.
And the legislature might start shifting in one direction or another on some issue.
Right.
And so it does have value and it does change things. So we may be dissatisfied with the way things are now, but we can use our power and do things that will change the makeup of the legislature so that it
Right.
will go better for us the way we want it to go if we get involved. What's too many people do, I think, is they complain, but they don't, and they make excuses for why doing
Right.
anything
Right. Right. And take zero action.
would. They don't want to do anything. They want to feel like, oh, you know what? I'm not going to do anything because it won't make any difference anyway.
Right. Just like people that
I'm
talk
just going to
themselves
sit here and
out of
watch
voting.
watch
Yeah.
another streaming episode on Netflix or something.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not actually going to do
People use
anything.
that logic to not vote sometimes. Well, I know they're going to win
Exactly.
anyways. It's,
Right.
yeah, enough
My
people
vote
thinking
won't
that. Yeah, you're
matter.
really going to make it crash. Yeah.
So I think if you are a healthy person and you have good mental health and you feel powerful and you feel connected with other people, which I think is a wonderful thing. It feels good and it's energizing, right?
Yes,
It's very
but we
healthy. It
obviously have a
helps
mental
us.
health crisis in this country, though. Also, unfortunately.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think mental health is something that all of us need to work on all the time. It's
Right.
not something that we should take for granted, right?
Right.
So we need it's kind of like, our healthy diet, our healthy exercise, our healthy
Yes. Yes.
mindset. It's
Yes.
all something that we should pay attention. It's like if you want to have a garden, you should probably throw some water at it. If it doesn't rain for a while, you should probably pull a few weeds. If
Right.
you don't, it might start looking like uh, a, a bad situation, right? So if you take care of it, if you take care of your garden, if you take care of your soul, you
Yep.
will be a happier, healthier person, and all the people around you will too. And so will your state of Minnesota, and so will
Right.
your legislature, and you will get rid of gun control if
Right.
you have all these wonderful things that
Right.
are fun. It's not like a chore to do these things. This is
Right.
something that will make you stronger, healthier, happier, and
Which
probably make you more money too.
brings us back to our personal sovereignty. It's
Yeah,
start with
it's going to
yourself.
bring you. It kind of reminds me of John you mentioned earlier. It's going to give you prosperity if you pursue these things. If you have good self discipline and mental health, and this political engagement is part of that, and it's fun. Once you get into it, before you get into, it's like anything. If you haven't tried something, you're like, oh, I might be kind of intimidated. It might be scary. But once you put your toe in the water, hey, the
Right.
water's fine. Like jump right in. It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and this YouTube thing for me, I've been in and out of it, and whatever. But one thing, I've watched some videos that creators put out to help other creators, and playing off of this whole idea is, they said the one thing successful YouTubers have is they never quit. They kept making videos. It's the same thing. If you stop, you can't have your success. You can't achieve your goals. You can't get to where you want if you quit. Then it's impossible, So that's the reason to always keep moving in the direction that you want it to go, because eventually you're going to get there.
Right, right. And I think when it comes to political engagement on, Second Amendment issues, it's similar to that for sure.
Mhm.
And that, my job, so by day I'm a criminal defense attorney, by night I'm a political activist, right? So in my spare time.
What color is your cape? No. Oh,
I'm thinking the
lordy.
green. I'm thinking the Green Hornet and Cato, but
There you go.
most people are too young to know what that means, right?
Yeah, we get dated some
Right.
references. I've noticed that.
That's
But
it's a
then,
Bruce Lee. It's a Bruce Lee reference for those who might have heard of
uh-huh.
him. But
Well, and the modern
right,
version wasn't too bad. The modern take on the Green
yeah,
Hornet,
it wasn't as bad as it
it
could
was
have been. That's right.
reasonable. I was impressed with it. I didn't have high expectations, and I'm like, yeah, that was a decent, yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, right, right. But we can all be our own superhero, though, and we should be. And it's a lot of fun, if you keep it, with a sense of humor and some humility. But you can have a good time, and it's really fun to do something with other people that there's a social aspect that's enjoyable, and you can also make the world a better and safer place for you and your kids. It's
Uh-huh.
wonderful.
Uh-huh. Oh, lordy. Good times. Well, let's wrap this up. The old clock is up to 2 hours, and I'm sure we both got other
Uh-oh.
things to do. So, but I
Yep.
enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it. This has been
Oh
fun.
yeah, absolutely.
So, be happy to do it again sometime if you want. Anyways,
Sure.
this is Thomas Gallagher of Gallagher Criminal Defense. He's a criminal defense attorney in the state of Minnesota. His website is in the description if you want to talk to him for your own personal needs. And my channel, this is John, and our channel is Your Renaissance Man. And I've been doing a series. I'm starting to just talk to people I know with experience in different professions and learning about them and learning more through them about their expertise of topics I think are of interest. And gun law impacts me directly and impacts a lot of other people. And it's becomes a hot topic button, especially currently with legislation teetering on trying to pass more restrictive legislation, and helps make people aware so you can support people like Minnesota Gun Caucus owners, for example, which we've talked about numerous times. So, anyways, thank you very much. If you haven't subscribed yet and you're willing to do so, it'd be greatly appreciated. And if you've subscribed already, if you can continue to support us by either like, commenting, or sharing. So, anyways, thank you all for watching. Hope you're doing well. God bless. We'll talk to you soon.